Good afternoon, good evening for some of you. Welcome to our fifth eTACCHE webinar on XR in teacher education, creating immersive content. My name is Mareike Oesterle from the Ludwigsburg University of Education, and I'm now since May the coordinator of the eTACCHE project, since Professor Götz Schwab, who's also here today, I think. I can't see the participants now, but I think I saw him left Ludwigsburg University of Education, taking a position as director at the Karlsruhe University of Education, who will soon also join the eTACCHE consortium as an associated partner. So they will also still be involved in our partnership, which we are very happy about. About my person, I have been working in teacher education for over 10 years now, primarily in transnational projects focusing on the digitalization of teacher education, developing CPD programs, and also innovative teaching and learning environments for teachers as well as for teacher educators. My research primarily focuses on the professional development of teacher educators and student teachers in transnational contexts, further also exploring now more and more emerging technologies, and in recent years also artificial intelligence in teacher education and XR environments. Now, I have been working with XR technologies for quite some time now, beginning with early AR applications such as HP Reveal, and later designing educational escape games and interactive learning environments using platforms like ThingLink, but also block coding tools like DeLitex, for example, but I will talk a bit more about the tools later on. Now, in the current project, eTACCHE, which this webinar is part of and which I will also introduce to you in a moment, we are basically exploring XR technologies as a sort of gateway, you can imagine, to culture heritage education. So our aim is to bring culture heritage sites and experiences into the seminars and classrooms in meaningful and accessible ways. Within the project, both students and teacher educators basically design immersive learning environments, experimenting with XR to support engagement, creativity, and intercultural learning. So in a way, today's webinar is also intended as a reflection of our journey, our progress so far, the challenges we have encountered, in some of the perspectives and ideas that have emerged along the way. So for today, we have basically put together a broad overview of XR content creation. We will begin by setting the scene, introducing some key concepts. So basically what we would like to talk or to show you today a little bit is the progress, and later on, especially to talk to you about what to consider. Oh, sorry, I haven't. What to consider.
You are sharing the website, yeah, exactly. Now it's the presentation.
Basically, really talk to you about what to consider or how to choose a tool to create appropriate and also effective learning environments for education. So before we start, I would like to tell you a little bit about the project itself and the project partners. I know that colleagues are here. I can't see them right now, but from Israel, I think also from Tallinn, but Greece and Romania are also on board. And us from Ludwigsburg University of Education, who together with us are part of the eTACCHE project consortium, which stands for eTwinning across cultures, collaborative heritage education. And it is an Erasmus Plus project, Key Action 2, and runs from 2024 to 2027. It aims at working together with partners across Europe and beyond to basically implement the eTwinning platform in initial teacher education, ITE. eTwinning, for those of you who do not know the platform, is set up by the European Commission that supports schools, students, and teachers, also teacher educators and future teachers in developing cross-border educational projects and also international collaboration. To achieve this collaboration, the eTACCHE project developed ITE seminars, so seminars for future teachers that introduce and embed eTwinning. These seminars focus on cultural heritage education, which is also where XR technologies become particularly relevant for us, as we integrate them to enable immersive and collaborative learning experiences that connect learners with culture sites, stories, and also contexts. So if you're interested in following the project further, you can check out our website, follow us on LinkedIn as well, and we will share all materials, also this presentation, for instance, but also the course structures basically, and all the course materials on the website. Yeah. So before we start with some key concepts and also terminology on XR, I would first like to hear from you. What do you personally associate with XR? So I have prepared, as you can see here, a Mentimeter. Shadia will also share the link in the chat, and I will also open it. So maybe 2
I
minutes.
just shared the two links. The first one is for our website. The second one is for the Mentimeter also, so please.
Okay. So there are already a couple of things. Yeah, digital overlays on the AR, augmented reality, exciting. Okay, so I think there are already a couple of things that we will also talk about later. Okay. So continuing now with a couple of terms that we use when we refer to XR. So XR, as in extended reality, is basically an umbrella term for immersive media technologies that merge physical and digital environments. So it encompasses, as also some of you have already put in, three main categories. So we have VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, and MR, mixed reality. Now, the term XR in Mann and Wyckoff's sense of extended reality builds on their collaboration, on their work around XR film and wearable XR vision devices already in the 1990s that basically extended human perception by combining real-world environments with digital elements in real time. Now, VR, I think, is, well, probably the term that most people have heard of, referring to fully digital environments, virtual reality that replaces the real world entirely. So here, you're no longer looking at your own room, you're somewhere else completely. A forest, a museum, a Viking village, or a reconstruction site of, or a reconstruction of a historic site. The most immersive version uses headsets, which you then wear and which tracks your head movements and gives you a first-person perspective. This is then what creates the feeling that researchers call presence, so the sense of actually being in the space rather than watching it on a screen. But, and this is very important for us also in the eTACCHE project, VR does not require a headset. So you can also experience a VR environment through a browser on your laptop, for instance, navigating everything with your mouse or your keyboard, or as a substitute, as you can see also on the screen here, to more expensive goggles. In particular, use such cardboard goggles, or those are kind of hard plastic goggles where you can put your phone in, which you can also use. It's of course a little bit less immersive, but especially in a seminar or a classroom where you have many students or pupils, it's way more accessible and also realistic because it's way, well, it's a lot cheaper, for instance, than the MetaQuest that you could also see. So then we have social VR. Yeah, that is also a VR technology which enables multiple users to simultaneously work and interact within a shared immersive environment using, as it is in this image here, avatars, where a sense of social presence is created. So the feeling of actually being together with others in the same place. Yeah. AR then, augmented reality, works differently. So I think it was also something that one put on the Mentimeter. So instead of replacing the real world, it layers digital content on top of it. So the world around you is still there, but you can see additional information, images, objects overlaid onto it through a screen or a device. The most familiar example most people use is just a smartphone app. So your mobile phones, for instance, holding your phone up, seeing directions appear over the street in front of you, that's AR. Or if you want to try out glasses in an online shop by pointing your camera at your face, that's also, for instance, AR. So the principle here is that digital content is anchored to the physical world. Now, XR experiences can be accessed through a variety of different devices. So we have smartphones, for instance, cardboard goggles, viewers, to advanced VR headsets, but also different AR tools. As you can see here, maybe some of you have also heard about the Merge Cube or have already used it. And of course, each of the tools offers different levels of immersion, but also interaction. So before moving on to the topic of XR in teacher education, I would like to know a little bit more about your own expertise with these technologies. So I have prepared a short poll on poll everywhere, I think it is. So Shadia, would you also copy the link to the chat? And I think I have to...
Already there.
Ah, yeah, perfect. And I think I have to open it. So I think I will continue. First of all, with asking the question, why do we use XR in initial teacher education? So first of all, I think XR, like any other educational technology, should never become an end in itself. So just because a technology is innovative or immersive does not automatically mean that it improves learning, which you will, I think, also see later on when we have a look at different scenarios and different tools. So like any other educational technology, its value depends entirely on how, why, and also when and how often it is used. Current research identifies several reasons why XR is increasingly being integrated into teacher education. So one of the most important reasons is bridging the theory-practice gap. So traditional teacher education often offers limited opportunities for realistic practice, making it difficult for student teachers, for instance, to apply pedagogical knowledge in complex classroom situations. And research suggests that XR can support this through, for instance, VR simulations, role play, and experiential learning that create more authentic teaching practices. Also, studies by Wang and Li, for instance, and also the Erasmus Plus VR Teacher Project highlight that XR environments can provide safe spaces, but also realistic ones for practicing classroom situations repeatedly, particularly challenging scenarios that are difficult to rehearse in traditional settings. Another important aspect is perspective taking, which I also found quite interesting when I came across this study. So an article by, or a paper, a book by Stavolia and colleagues, also as part of one Erasmus Plus project, shows that when trainee teachers experience VR scenarios from both the teachers and the students' perspective, they develop a deeper understanding of learners' emotions and challenges, and also classroom experiences. Now, regarding effectiveness, there are recent meta-analyses, for instance, that report on an overall moderate positive effect of XR in teacher education, particularly for classroom management, content knowledge, and social relational skills. However, many of these students still focus mainly on student teachers as users or consumers of XR experiences. So you would have a student go into a VR environment and experience a classroom simulation, for instance. In the eTACCHE project, however, we take a slightly different approach. So in the project, pre-service teachers actively design XR learning environments themselves, develop learning activities around them, and later also test them with pupils in school. This connects a bit to a final point where there is, though, still comparatively little research about, which is on how future teachers can learn to design immersive learning experiences. Here's one study, for instance, from Solano, who argues that digital technologies are shifting education away from passive slide-based teaching towards more interactive and also multimedia-rich learning environments. So their argument is basically that when trainee teachers not only experience XR as learners, but also actively create immersive learning spaces, they begin to develop both the pedagogical understanding and also the practical, technological skills needed to design meaningful XR-supported learning for their future pupils in school, which is plausible. However, there are, of course, also challenges. So first, the literature mentions physical side effects. So we can observe cyber sickness, for instance, eye strain and general fatigue if you wear the goggles, and also depending on what kind of goggles you use. Most of the platforms looking at so-called pedagogical gaps use also, which is a problem, scripted student responses. So if you have, for instance, a classroom situation in VR, they are all pre-planned and also pre-structured. So they do not really portray the complexity of the real classroom here, which is the argument. Also, there's the so-called novelty effect, which can be a problem, so that students only focus on the technology and not so much on the learning. Because sometimes in a space or in a game that you create, you can also kind of go around, shift around a little bit around the learning, around the tasks. Cost is also critical for many schools and also universities, as well as technical barriers in general. And ethically, in terms of data privacy, for instance, we always have to bear in mind that these devices track quite a lot. So they track eye movements, biometrics, location, and we do have to think about who owns such data, yeah? Where does it go to, where is it stored, and so on. Last but not least, we also have to be aware that there is inconsistent evidence and not so much research on VR in teacher education. And it also varies a lot depending on the subject. So for instance, we do have a lot of research on the STEM subjects, but there is relatively little on languages, for instance. Okay, so over the past 2 years within the eTACCHE project, our approach to XR has, I think, gradually shifted from open experimentation towards, yeah, maybe a much more structured approach that we are even more structuring now. And as you can see here, I used AI trying to create a sort of roadmap to show you the progress of the project. So from my perspective, looking back, the complexity of the whole process and also of embedding VR in teacher education in different courses was way greater than I initially expected. And I think this complexity emerged from three main areas. So first, there is, of course, the technical dimension. So we deliberately aim to work with affordable and also accessible tools that our institutions could realistically use, maybe even sustain without requiring large budget or highly specialized equipment. Now here we were very lucky now because we had existing licenses at one of our partner institutions, thanks to Gordon College here, that I think most of us in the project can now use. But otherwise it would have been very expensive and difficult. Second, there is of course the partnership itself. So we are working across 5 different institutions in 5 different countries, and each of us with its own teacher education culture, curriculum structures, time schedules, and also different levels of technological integration. So here we also had quite a great diversity, I would say. On the other side, of course, we had various kinds of expertise that we were able or are still able to draw on. And third, I think there was the sheer diversity and also complexity of XR applications of the whole landscape within teacher education and beyond. Yeah, so not all tools, of course, are created with learning in mind, with education in mind, but it made it very challenging to pick and choose and to kind of find the way around. Today, trainee teachers within the project actively design, test, and reflect on concrete XR-supported lessons connected to eTwinning and culture heritage. So from these artifacts and experiences that they now create, we are beginning to derive more empirically grounded design criteria, for meaningful XR learning environments, which I think does not always depend on the learning objective or didactical design, but is also, I realize more and more strongly affected by the affordances and limitations of the specific platform itself, which is also a problem. So we also always have to find out, okay, what does each tool realistically enable learners to do? What has, I think, become increasingly clear to us is that XR within eTech functions much more as a pedagogical approach or method. So here we see a particularly strong case for XR in cultural heritage education because it enables learning experiences that other media often cannot provide. So it allows learners to explore places and culture sites that may be geographically inaccessible, fragile or even restricted. So, as part of our project journey, we also started reflecting on the different roles students and teachers can take when working with XR, because these roles we realized strongly shape how XR is actually being used pedagogically. So to structure this, we drew loosely on frameworks such as Bloom's revised taxonomy, the ICAP framework, TPEC, but also DIC-CompEdu. And what emerged for us was, I think, less fixed, but more of a practical orientation. So on the student side, we identified three broad roles. We have the consumer who explores existing XR experiences. We have the adapter, who modifies or enriches spaces, and then the creator who designs immersive learning spaces from scratch. In eTech, many student projects actually move somewhere in between adaptation and creation. So some create things from scratch, some also take existing spaces and kind of redesign them a bit with additional hotspots or other storytelling, other kinds of stories embedded in the space. On the teacher side, so the teacher educator side here, we have two roles, I think, that became visible. So we have the curator, someone who selects and integrates existing XR resources into teaching, and also the designer who actively develops learning experiences around XR, basically. So after this more or less theoretical input, I would now like to move to a more practical phase. So one useful way we think to approach XR tools and technologies is maybe to differentiate between tools for consuming, adapting, and creating immersive experiences. So some tools mainly allow learners to explore existing environments, others allow them to modify, enrich, and interact a bit more, while some support also the creation of immersive spaces from scratch, like for instance, Delight tags or also ThingLink. In practice, as you will also see in a moment when you have a look at the Padlet here, these categories often overlap, also very dependent on what kind of feature you use from a certain tool. But before you leave, I would like you to kind of take a couple of questions with you. So have a look at the different tools. There are a couple of categories, consume, adapt, create, immersive learning spaces. The first categories are for the immersive content creation tools, if you want to put it that way. But when you have a look at it, maybe think about what would learners actually do with this tool. Yeah, you can click on it. And also what they could potentially learn through this experience, through the tool in your own context. So,
Mareike, I need to give it some thought. It's not like straightforward.
yes.
I need to look at it a little longer.
Mhm.
pension's only 43.50 a month.
I think for me it's the same as well, because I've never, this is the first time that I think the Padlet is a great resource to see what's on offer.
Yeah.
But it's the first time that I'm encountering all of these possibilities. So I'd need time to kind of look at it and sort of get an idea, because what I'm seeing now is there's a huge amount of different possibilities. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks for the Padlet, and thanks for creating that, 'cause it's a great resource in itself.
Well,
And
I'm
this is a
Can I
great
add
point.
something, Mareike?
yeah.
Because one of my students is researching Padlet,
Yeah.
okay, as a tool, a technical tool for self-expression of like younger students. I think this could be added to your list, your huge list. I didn't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Like when we're talking about immersive, creating immersive environments, I think we could look at it also in another direction, like because we're creating something and we're creating a world. So I think it's missing from the palette. I would add it.
You mean creation? Or...
Self-expression.
Okay.
Creation. Yeah. Creation.
Yeah, I mean, I put in adapt and create, and I think this is really just the toolkit here. And I think, like Raphael said, it's also like how it really is. Like the whole landscape is very overwhelming, and it's very difficult to structure it and to kind of find your way around it, and actually to pick something. Like the more I look into it, the more I think, oh God, okay, you can get this tool, but this costs this amount, and da. So it's very difficult to actually pick and choose something. So yes, I mean the Padlet is also
Maybe you're right.
Yeah,
it's in the adapt and create remix.
Yeah,
it's
and,
there inside.
Yeah, and it's also the idea to show you the Padlet, but also, of course, for you to use it later on as a sort of resource. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now we move on also with a little bit of a practical activity. So I would like you now to have a look at a thingling that was created. Some students of mine already know this thingling that was created as part of a eTACCHE course at the Ludwigsburg University of Education. And move away kind of talking about the different XR tools, but more about what kind of criteria, what kind of characteristics a environment would need to make it suitable for a learning environment. So please, in a moment, go to the thingling scene here. We will also put it in the chat again.
I put it in the chat, but it seems that the link is not working. Try to add it from your computer. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah. So maybe you have like 5 to 6 minutes, 5 minutes, okay? But really think about what makes you feel more active here in this environment. Where are you? Do you take more of a passive role? What kind of interaction and engagement does the environment actually encourage? Yeah. So and then it would be great if you could share one comment on the environment on thingling, just a very short first impression. So I will wait a second, share it with you.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think I'd need like really instructions to know what to do with it, basically. I think that's yeah.
Ariella, you wanted to say something or not?
Yeah. I really like
now you want
yeah.
to.
No. I really like these 360 environments. It like sucks you into another world, and it has like a lot of potential for education, I think. Like even for children to construct their own environment spaces, and for teachers to do really intriguing spaces. So from my experience, my students who are all teachers are doing like they're really into it.
Mm-hmm.
They're researching and then doing things which are really interesting. Tzlil is here still.
Yeah. Can this be also collaborative, like few people contribute to the space?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, Tzlil was sitting with a couple of students the other day, and they were so interested in doing it, and like not young people, like not both of them are over 50, and they really I think they found it, the learning part was interesting. Tzlil, can you say something about it?
Yeah, I think that these kind of spaces, they allow like students, or let's say the participants, to inquire the spaces, but it also allows the teachers to be creative and to explore different media.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it really allows this inquiry in both ends, either the teacher and the student. And this specific environment is very extensive, so I haven't explored all, but I see that it takes you to different scenes, and you have many options to for interactive activities. So it's very interesting for us also to see the process, the creation process.
I think so first of all, maybe to Shadia's question, so here it is not possible to kind of meet, it's not a social VR, so that's a bit of a shame because you cannot enter the space together with others and explore it. So that's really something that is I think not so effective here because you cannot do it virtually together. However, I also think it's a good start, maybe also to explore different sites and places students choose that they can create things. I do, however, also think that, especially with AI, the spaces that exist, we tend to create and create and create. And so sometimes now, also on ThingLink, you see so many 360 images, and they are all AI generated, and it kind of takes away a bit. So I'm a bit annoyed with all these AI productions, although of course I'm using it too. But so I think you still have to really consider, and I think that's very difficult to think about what you put in here, because it is really nice, it's exciting, and you think, oh wow, it's cool, it's great, I have a look, but to really then go into the detail and think, okay, but what do we do with it? What do we learn from it? Yeah, how do we use it? So the more I use it, I like it, and I think you can use it in very, very different and also effective ways. But I also think that there's this novelty effect, and it's very great that you, especially with the goggles. So I think we always have to discuss and bear in mind why we use it. Anyway, so I would like to go to one last slide here. Because this is kind of the question, so how do we actually choose an XR tool? Adapted from Roselle Aguilar in 2017, they developed a framework here for evaluating language learning applications. So we have now used this framework and extended it using 4 criteria and also combined it with 4 XR specific ones. So first of all, we have pedagogy. So we have to ask, as I also said before, whether the tool supports meaningful learning. Yeah, so taking, for instance, ICAP and also Bloom's revised taxonomy as a basis, we can here think about whether the tool keeps learners passive. Yeah, do you only consume, only view, or really pulls them into constructive, creative work, like Ariella also said. Then accessibility. So is especially relevant, I think, for universities and also for schools who have limited budgets. So because expensive licenses is not a minor concern, I think, that we also experience in the eTACCHE project, but it really determines whether a tool is really accessible and most of all also sustainable. And that's the fourth point here, whether you can actually have a look at the content, what you created also later on, or does it just disappear when you don't pay the license anymore? Then, of course, there's the issue of data protection and also ethical questions. So is the tool GDPR compliant? And yeah, and then we have kind of combined it with 4 XR specific considerations. So I think you can use the first 4 very generally with many educational technologies. But looking at XR, we first have the aspect of immersion with what I think you have also seen looking here at the ThingLink. So what makes a VR scene immersive? Yeah, maybe it's a sound in the background. What happens when you take away the sound? Do you still feel like you're in the scene? So does the tool provide the level of immersion that also your pedagogical goal actually requires? So what do you want them to do? What do you want them to feel maybe? Yeah, we are looking here at London. So maybe it's good to have sounds in the background, cars, you can hear buses and so on and so forth. So more immersion, and I think that's important. It's not necessarily better, because also what Ariella said, I think is a very good point. And like you see the scene and you are like into it, especially when you wear the goggles. My students have also, I think, experienced that. You go into the scenes and you go into the applications and you, I don't know, dive with sharks, whatever. But in the end, it's like, what is it just fun? But what do you want to achieve with it? What's the purpose? Then there is interactivity. So can trainees actually interact with one another? Is it a social VR with the content? Yeah, can they kind of navigate inside the VR environment? And can they especially make also choices that then affect where they go, what kind of activities they do in the environment? Physical safety is also something to consider. How we can prevent, for instance, motion sickness, eye strain, and so on, and which headsets do we use, because some headsets actually promote support or lead to motion sickness more than others, for instance. Last but not least, I think it is always, it is always a good basis to have evidence, and that is really something that is not that is often missing concerning many kinds of VR applications. But maybe also you find best practice online, but some kind of hint, some kind of evidence that this type of XR works for your specific learning outcome, or you make a study of it yourself. That's of course also an option. So, and maybe to visualize this, that also concerning other learning designs, I think, but every decision that you make, every kind of criteria that you promote, tugs on several of these strings at once. So for instance, if you look at the line between immersion here and accessibility, for instance, a high immersion tool requires an expensive headset probably, and headsets might then not be accessible. So the moment you increase immersion, you might decrease accessibility. So that trade-off, one of the key tensions that I think you will probably face in every XR decision that you make. On the whole, I think we can see there's always a sort of negotiation, between the network. But I think what is important, especially in teacher education, that this negotiation, or that we teach our student teachers to be aware of this negotiation, to kind of know, okay, if we now use these goggles, then not all the students will be able to access it, okay? So kind of be aware of what decisions we make, what kind of impact it has on our learning, on our teaching practices, basically, in school, but also at university level. So I think I will probably skip this a bit or share it with you after this webinar is over, because I think it is 6 now. So maybe very briefly what you can see here, what we would like to share with you also afterwards. is a virtual makerspace. Yeah, so all the tools, everything that we also talked about today, the links to the Padlet also you saw, you can also find in this virtual makerspace. This makerspace was created on ThingLink in a previous project, but we are now currently integrating it a little bit also in the eTACCHE project to kind of have a collection of tools, technologies, but also best practices. So for example, you can find videos from other teacher educators and teachers across Europe here who have shared best practices not only on XR, but also on other kinds of educational technologies. And afterwards, yeah, it would be great if you could share some feedback with us as well. Maybe also think about what has shifted from you to your previous answer, what you associated with XR. And yeah, otherwise, I think maybe we leave some room, Shadia, still for questions or comments.
I just added the link to the maker space here in the chat. Yeah, and if anyone has any question, it's the time. Thank you, Mareike.
Okay, I have one. Not a question, a comment. Mareike, first of all, it was really exciting and interesting. And like being a person and a teacher, lecturer that deals with these environments, I'm looking towards the future. And somewhere in one of my groups, something popped up about virtual immersive um, spaces, which I like said I would catch up and see what they're doing right now. And I would really like to share it because I think we have life after ThingLink, and this ThingLink is sometimes like what you felt with AI is, of course, I also think you sometimes do imaginary things which are really not possible to do, but they're also not like revealing any truth. Like Buckingham Palace probably looks a little different in reality. But could I share this site by Google Labs, which I found by mistake, and I think it's really for our next turn in working in VR and immersive spaces. Can you stop the share? This is this virtual space which I found by Google. And Google, of course, when they go into the race, when they start getting into the race, they really do it in a whole pace. Like they really run quickly. And this is like, I started looking at it now, but I'm saying that after we're done with ThingLink, which is a little static, there are others, I'm going to stop the sharing. There are other spaces or other technologies which are being developed, which are maybe we need to check what we can do with them in education. Maybe that's our next step, our really innovative next step to check.
I have to say that people have to leave and they are
Okay.
sending messages in the chat. So we will continue this internal discussion in our meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will send you an email with links to our social media, to our website, and also with a recording of this meeting. Thank you, Mareike, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.